Now, most people would agree the two most important aspects of the freestanding handstand push-up is balance and strength to do the movement. Unfortunately, most people are missing out on the balance section, or they're training the balance incorrectly and have big gaps in the movement. When most people think about balancing a freestanding handstand, they know that we can go a certain direction in this way towards our underbalance, and we can go to a certain direction this way towards our overbalance. If we go beyond that, we fall out of position. So we have a window of balance that maybe is this big. The bigger the balance window, the more I can move around, the more room for error I have. So it's very common that people are training this freestanding hold, so getting duration there, building time and control in their straight position, while they're working the strength components of the handstand push-ups, either in a pike position or up against the wall, both chest to wall and or back to wall. But then when they try and do a freestanding handstand push-up, they get halfway down and they either fall towards underbalance or they get all the way to the floor, but then when they push back up, they go over to overbalance. So what we need to do is think about the handstand push-up in three sections. We have the top section, so the one that everyone trains to start with to get that handstand balance. It will either look like this or anything in between. Then we have the pathway, so the point at which my shoulders come forwards, my feet come backwards, my head comes down towards the floor. Then we have this bottom section, so I'm hovering in this position, still balanced, and then reverse, back up that pathway for the concentric. Now, one of the things that will change quite dramatically for most people when they're beginning the journey to the freestanding handstand is that they'll have a different eccentric to their concentric. So their body position on the way down might look nice and clean and in a straight line, but now when they come back up, they're going to go into a banana arch position, and normally that's where they'll drop towards that underbalance or they'll go over towards overbalance because they're going outside their balance window. But your balance window isn't this anymore like it was for the straight handstand, it's changed to this. And we need to move through that pathway and have room for error both on the underbalance and the overbalance. And then another thing to think about is if we can use the overbalance and the underbalance, and actually falling out of that balance window can help us in the handstand push-up to fall into the handstand, or it can make it really hard and I fall out of the handstand push-up. So normally it's the overbalance that will help us. If we think about the crow to handstand, we actually use this. I'm actually going to fall over, but I'm going to catch myself at the top. So in this position, I'm very heavy towards underbalance. My feet and my legs want to go backwards, down to the floor again. But when I push my legs up, if I arch my body and go to overbalance, it's picking me up. And look, I'm right on the edge of falling out. So I was falling as I was going up, and that falling helps me to go up. As long as I can keep it in control, I can use it to help me out of that position. So I can use it to go up and over, and it sort of pushes me up into the handstand. If I do the opposite, and as I push, I fall backwards towards underbalance, my position becomes very, very heavy, and the strength required to get out of that is probably double, triple, quadruple of what it is if I use the overbalance to help me out. So how do we put our training together where we start to work more balance work while we're still learning the strength of the handstand push-up? So let's first look at the wall drills. So the wall drills are based on me using the wall from a balance point of view or a strength point of view. Now, what do I mean by that? So if I'm coming down from my eccentric, I probably just need help with my balance. So my toes are lightly on the floor. But when I get to the bottom, when I need to come back up, I move back towards underbalance and I walk or slide back up the wall. But you see how I moved backwards towards the wall as I came back up? That's that falling into underbalance and putting weight backwards that made me fall out of the freestanding version. But the wall nearly encourages that, and I can walk up the wall by putting more weight into the wall, but that's going to carry over into a negative way for my freestanding version. So what I need to focus on both the eccentric, the down phase, and the up phase, the concentric part, is to try and have as light contact with the wall as possible. So when I'm here, I could even hold a handstand at the top. Then as I come down, I've got very, very light toes on the wall. And then even if I walk up, my toes are very, very light still. I'm not putting any weight on the wall. Now, a really good way of feeling that is to go bare feet. Don't have big shoes on and numb down that feeling. You want to try and feel how much weight do you have and only just use enough. Now, the newer you are to these drills, the harder that's going to be. But with repetition and time, you want to feel that decreasing. Now, the simplest way to start looking at the freestanding version is just to do as clean as possible and as slow as possible eccentric. So the eccentric you're stronger in, you should have more time to balance. So from that home position. Now this home start position is going to be different for everyone. If your handstand balance position looks like this is how your home position should be. Don't suddenly try and snap into a straight line if you can't hold that. So find your position there where you're most comfortable, and then from there I'm going to go down as slow as possible, and I want to finish in my triangle, so my head comes forwards to create a triangle with my head and my hands, hold, and then come back down again. So that's just going to practice the full range of motion, eccentric, so down phase only. Things are going to change when I go back up. That allows me to spend lots of time under tension throughout the range of motion, find any gaps, try and fill them by just slowing down through that point. And that drill can be done on the floor or it can be done on a deficit. Now in some ways the deficit is easy at the end, so when I get down to the bottom, but obviously the bigger range of motion and the elevated position is going to be a learning curve or next step up for a lot of people. But same thing, learning to come down through your balance pathway, hold at the bottom, come back out. Now that hold at the bottom is very, very important, and it's a point that we need to train either by itself. So if you fall out of the position, especially the floor version, we need to spend some time there separately to the eccentric. But something like the shoulder stand position that I just lowered to there can normally be integrated into the eccentric. So you just do a slow eccentric and then pause at the bottom for time. Remember, we want time under tension through the full range of motion. And then for the concentric, we can train it in two different ways. We can do the partial range, so that's going to have an eccentric and a concentric, but it's going to be limited, so it's partial. So you're not getting the full range of motion at the moment, but we want to create that triangle. Feel the balance on the way down, pause for a second with touching, and then go back up, find your balance again at the top. And then just slowly decrease the height of the target, making sure that you show control all the way down to it, on it, and then back up again, show control at the top. And then the other option is looking at the concentric only. So if you're super strong, you could push out of something like a headstand. So you start in this position and then push up from there, slow and controlled as possible, making sure you hold at the top. You can even add in the eccentric on the way back down. Or if that's too hard, you could start with like crow variations that I showed earlier. And this is where you can really embrace that overbalance and get used to using that to your advantage and use momentum to help you up, but still try and catch the handstand at the top. So make sure you're working on your strength, working on your eccentrics, working on some concentric work, and then slowly put it all together. If you have questions, if you'd like coaching, reach out either in the comments below or message me direct. Links are in the description, and I'll speak to you next time. Thanks, guys. Hey, let's test our max handstand push-up repetition. So starting in the straight position, coming down, touching the head, going back up again. So that's 1, 2. Now you could do pike or you could do wall. 3, 4, freestanding if you have it. You could do deficit. 5, and you could talk while you do it as well if you want a bit more of a challenge.